Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Patty Giarusso, and this is Let's Talk Pets on Society Bites Radio. Today, we welcome to the show Carmen Brothers with Found Professional Pet Trackers, and we're going to talk about lost dog tracking. Carmen Brothers has been tracking lost pets for 5 to 6 years with her tracking dog, Magic, and she's a nationally recognized tracking expert. She travels all over the United States, but primarily focuses on the East Coast. Carmen has spent the last decade tirelessly working to reunite pet owners with their lost pets. Her love of animals has taken her across the United States and into the hearts of countless families, and she has been featured in National Geographic's Trackers TV series. She's also the founder and on the board of directors of a nonprofit organization called Lost Animal Rescue Group, which is a full-service pet recovery organization. So welcome to the show, Carmen.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I'd like you to talk about what you do and how, when I was reading over some of your information, one of the things that I found interesting was, and maybe this was the case of something not in your local area, but it said that you hit the ground after a certain number of days. So talk to me about the difference of, do you start right out when a dog is immediately lost, or do you wait several days? Because I found that interesting.
Well, every case is a little different. It can depend on, location. Are you in the country or are you in New York City? New York City, for instance, there's so many people and so much car contamination. I like to try to be there within 24 hours, just so that I can make sure I can pick up the freshest scent. Mm-hmm. I've done, I did something in Alexandria, Virginia a couple weeks ago, and I was there after 4 days, and we actually had a walk-up find, which is a big rarity. It happens in less than 5% of the cases I do. Typically because when you're tracking, you're essentially kind of chasing a moving target. Mm-hmm. And a dog or cat will sense you coming towards them before you can even get eyes on them. So you have to be able to pick out we try to pick out a pattern and work within that pattern. Typically, lost pets tend to circle. So when we're tracking, that's kind of what we look for. And then we utilize feeding stations or trapping to bring the pet home safely to you.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I just wondered, because you do travel all around, how it was determined whether it was, the dog's been lost for a little while and then there's some new sightings. So then you head out and start that way. So that's a good explanation. So why don't you talk about, because I jumped right into that question because it was on my mind ever since I read it. Talk to us about how you got started doing this.
So I started off by volunteering for a rescue, City Dogs Rescue out of Washington, D.C. And they had a dog go missing in Anacostia, Washington, D.C. And I obviously was a volunteer, so I was helping with flyering and trying to get sightings in and just kind of helping with the whole process. And it was so rewarding at the end when you finally get the dog home. And I just really enjoyed it. And so I kind of took it and ran with it from there.
Okay, so how did you, when you started working with that other rescue, did you have a dog at that time, or did you start with a dog afterwards? Okay, so how did you go about doing that, and where did you get the dog? Was it your own dog, or what was that?
So I started with a group out of Baltimore, Maryland, and I was using one of their dogs at the time, and they, I started training to track, and kind of it really helps if you know lost pet behavior before you start tracking, because anybody can take a scent dog out, give them a scent item, and follow a scent path. But it's what you do with that information from the track that helps bring the pet home. If you don't understand that, pets typically come out between dusk and dawn, that people don't understand what flight and survival mode is. And owners assume that if they go out and start screaming for their dog, Molly, that obviously Molly knows her name, Molly knows their voice, she should come running. But that's unfortunately just not the way it works. And when people go out calling for their lost dog, screaming, all that dog is hearing is a loud noise, which can scare them more and push them further away. So it took a little while. I'm with a group called Missing Animal Response Network, and I've taken their classes, and it's a 10 to 12 week class where you learn all about lost pet behavior, and you learn what to do with the scent trail. The actual tracking portion of it is probably easier than the afterwards action plan, which includes, like I said, feeding stations and trapping and scent strips and all of that fun stuff.
Okay. So I've heard about the Missing Animal Response Network and the classes. I've looked at that many times, and it's very intense or very thorough, whatever you want to say. It's a great I'm at a loss for words here this morning because I haven't had my coffee.
It's a great program.
That's That's the word. Oh my gosh.
And like you said, it's very thorough, and it covers all kinds of different scenarios. And there's a big difference between what happens when if you let your dog out at night to use the bathroom, and you come back out 5 minutes later, like you've done every night for the past 10 years, and all of a sudden your dog's gone. And there's a difference between that, or I just helped with a dog in Tennessee that they literally had the dog maybe 2 hours max, and they stopped at a rest stop up on I-40, and the dog backed out of a harness and took off and bolted across all four lanes of the highway, which is a very highly trafficked highway, obviously. And last I saw her, she was running down railroad tracks.
Oh my gosh. So
there's you kind of need to take into consideration the frame of mind of the pet, different behavioral aspects of the pet. Like this pet obviously did not know these people at all.
Yeah.
So she didn't even know her new name. So the likelihood of them being able to get over to where they last saw her and have them come and have the dog come to her was slim.
Yeah.
Versus, a dog that you've had for 10 years and that kind of thing. For a dog you've had 10 years, when pets go missing, they utilize their sense of scent before anything else. So I've seen it 1,000 times where if an owner will see their lost pet 5 feet away, the dog turns around and bolts the other way. And people don't really understand how possible and how likely that is to happen unless you've actually been through it.
Right.
Pet owners, you can tell them 1,000 times, your dog's not going to come to you. Your dog's not going to come to you. Please don't, walk up on the dog. Don't chase the dog. And again, they don't understand it until they actually see it.
Yeah.
If your dog of 10 years was missing, you would need to literally, like they call it, stop, drop, and think. You need to drop to the ground, so that way you're in a non-threatening position, and your pet ideally will approach you slowly and be able to smell you and recognize you by scent. They're not going to recognize you by, the curly hair or the red hair or you yelling out for them. They need to be able to actually smell you to recognize you.
Yeah. And that right there is one of the hardest things, like you said, to get an owner to accept when you tell them that their pet, perceives them as a threat. They don't like to believe that.
No. But, they go missing, and when it comes down to it, they are still animals. So that animal instinct kicks in, and that adrenaline's going, and they don't trust anybody, and they're scared, and they're in possibly a new area. And that's why we do scent strips, because that provides that comforting scent of home, and they'll recognize the scent before they recognize you. So we do like scent strips leading up to a trap or a feeding station, just to make the dog feel comfortable to come and approach that area.
Yeah.
And the same thing kind of goes with the do not chase. People lose, you drop the leash on a walk and your dog starts running away. You think, just your instinct is, there goes my dog, I'm clearly going to run after him and try and get him. That is actually probably one of the worst things you can do. By chasing a dog, they're going to start to associate that area with fear, and it runs a higher risk of them not returning to that area.
Yeah. We just had a little dog yesterday. Somebody posted, not with us, but on another group, and I was reading it, and they said, oh, the dog likes to be chased. I doubt that it likes to be chased,
Right.
She's like, I chased it for an hour. It likes to be chased. I thought, no, it doesn't.
No, that dog's probably running in scared to death.
Yeah.
And that just makes it so much harder for them to get their pet back.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just don't know these things when it happens, because you never think, it's one of those things you think, oh, that's never going to happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And until it does, you just don't understand a lot of these things. That's why, flyers are so, so, so important. I would say flyers are almost more beneficial than having a tracking dog out. If
Mm-hmm.
you had to choose between having flyers out or having a tracking dog out, 100% I would go with flyers.
Yeah. 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 Just yesterday night, we found someone, one of the people in my organization found this old, we don't know how old he is, but he's got to be pushing 16, 17-year-old little chihuahua with his tongue hanging out, all gray, humped back, and it was in a pretty area that you would expect, there's a lot of people, there were apartment complexes, there were condo complexes all around. So you knew that this dog did not travel very far, but nobody was looking for it. So because it was a found dog and it passed through a couple hands to keep it out of the shelter until a foster was holding it temporarily, my husband and I went out and we hung up flyers all around near all these condo complexes and apartment complexes. And sure enough, we got a call last night um, that the owner saw the flyers. But it always amazes me that where was this person on social media? Where was she trying to find her dog? That's the question I always wonder too. So I am in 100%, 1,000% agreement that flyers are so, so important, especially if you found someone's pet, to put them up.
Right, right. I mean, without flyers, you're probably not going to get sightings. Even if you put them, in people's mailboxes, which is illegal, or if you go door to door and hand them to people, that's great, because at least they know about it right then and there. But when they see your dog in 2 days and that flyer's on their kitchen table and they're on their way to work and they're late and they look around to see if they can find a flyer real quick and they can't, then you're losing very valuable, precious time. You could have
Yeah.
gotten that call and been there within, 5 or 10 minutes, versus it's going to take 8 more hours till they get home. Then they might not even remember exactly where they saw the dog or that they saw the dog. I mean, you really just need to make sure that community outreach is just so vitally important.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, in the case, out of curiosity, when you were talking about the dog running down the railroad tracks, when a dog like that, because we have many new rescue dogs that escape, I mean, they're high flight risks. And they are the ones that are always lost the longest. So, what do you say in the case of this type of loss? What is your best recommendation for people to do if they don't have someone like you in the area? Because we don't, so we do the other things, with our volunteers to help. So what would your recommended steps be for somebody who lost maybe a newly rescued or adopted dog?
Well, I would try to find out a little bit about the dog's history. Are they a recent mother? Do they just have puppies? Is there a foster that maybe they were with for 2 to 3 weeks that they're a little bit more attached to? Have they ever been trapped before? Or, were they found as a stray somewhere, in Texas or wherever, where they could have been on the street for years? If that's the case, it's going to be much harder, and you have to think much more quickly to, spring into action to get that dog back, because you don't want him to go far. So I would suggest getting food out immediately to the area that you last saw the dog. And I'm not talking, not like your dry Purina dog chow, something that's a little bit more enticing. Rotisserie chicken off the bone, fried chicken off the bone, microwaved hot dogs that really, if you microwave them kind of beyond human consumption, if you will, they really stink. And, you can put those out because you want something that carries a scent. And if you get food out there and you can get the dog eating, then odds are you will stay closer to that area.